we
I
had
would
this
do?
meet in Dexter.
I'd go the
It
long
started
way.
with cloud, then sun, then rain, then hail.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we sat through it all.
Oh,
And the kids
I
were
know what
still
you
running.
tell me to do.
As long as, no, as long as there's no
I
control
got
like
force of
that.
habit though, man.
You know it'd be easier. Turn onto the service drive down to Quirk Road and bring Quirk Road in.
But I like being up a little early.
Does he have terrible twos yet? Not yet.
Because you got a light there for your left turn.
Not quite.
I can get out of his easier.
Have any time frames, but my younger
So-
one had terrible 4s, 5s, and 6. Oh my God. I didn't think either he was going to make it or I was going to make it.
You know, is that yeah, I bet that's what it
I
is.
knew it.
Yeah.
But everything I knew it. I'm like, oh my God.
My son knows
What have you? Okay. This.
I get to mom, but when she leaves, he seems to be okay. So
Polio body.
Is that one mine or yours?
That's mine. I think that's one that isn't. No, that is the motorized one.
24 and a half years ago. No,
Okay.
it's very, very, maybe one time I would have seen him. No,
Because we
he's
could
just
all get into that one.
and I'm the opposite end of the spectrum. Doesn't take much to like that fuse.
You and Jay.
So yeah,
Oh, for nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
if the boys need
I
something,
drive
they have to
my
first
mom
ask mom.
around,
Because
I
anything
drive-
else, Dad, you're gonna
I
get
drove
it.
my grandma around. I drove Janie around. Yeah.
Thursday morning, head up to Lansing.
So-
I hear a bang. Rock hit my windshield and chipped it.
It's karma. It's karma.
I literally said to myself, I voted yes.
I voted yes. That's right. Exactly. It's karma.
So
Hit it, but
That many miles on it. You want to get rid of it? Buy it.
Almost
You know,
time.
I always am getting kids cars.
I'm a little excited about this. It's
That,
pictures
that
and
we're
things
not
look
gonna
nice.
sell on the lot.
It's hot.
Like,
It is hot. Okay, it's not just me. I was like, it's.
That's the first thing I
The meeting is active.
Vehicles that have
Blast.
like 100,000 miles or
think that's
90,000
really cool.
miles, and I can research where the car's been, what the repairs, if they serviced it properly.
the whole
The
7
brakes,
members.
I'll do a measurement and everything,
short by
and
one.
I teach the kids, hey, this is what it is. So
Yes.
their parents are kind of leery of me, but
Anything
instead
in the
of
works,
giving the
or,
vehicle to the wholesalers, because they
Is the heater on?
take it to
Jerry wanted it a
Detroit
little
or take it
warmer. It's, I
somewhere
think
and, do
it's
a
holding at
pay here,
73.
buy here. It's like these kids are excited about
Thank
it.
you.
My daughter, Ava's boyfriend, he bought one with 160,000 miles on it. Still has it. It has like.
you found one for Matt too.
Matt who? Matt Best. Oh, that was brand new, wasn't it? No, you got your daughter a used car.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Charter Township of Van Buren Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, April 26, 2023. At this time, we're calling the meeting to order, and will we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, could we have the roll call, please?
Jackson Paul,
Here, sorry.
Atchison. Bernie Grant,
Here.
Sherry Budd, Jeff Jar,
Here.
Brian Cullen.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda that's presented before us tonight?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
We have a motion to approve the agenda as presented and support. All in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of April 12th, 2023?
Through the chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of April 12th, 2023 as presented.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Budd, support by Commissioner Grant. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, I don't see any correspondence, public hearing, or old business. Moving on to new business. Item number 1, Case 23017, Phantom Fireworks at the Menard site for temporary land use. The applicant, Phantom Fireworks, is requesting a temporary land use permit to conduct a temporary outdoor fireworks tent sale located at 10010 Belleville Road. This site is located in the Menards parking lot, which is on the west side of Belleville Road, south of Tyler Road. This activity is proposed from June 22nd, 2023 to July 4th, 2023. Could we have presentation from the township staff?
Mr. Chair, good evening, everybody. This will be the third temporary fireworks tent that the Planning Commission has reviewed an application for this year, so I'll try to make my comments concise. Phantom of Michigan Incorporated is requesting a temporary land use permit for a tent sale of fireworks at the Menards parking lot at 10010 Belleville Road, and their use is proposed to be from June 22nd through July 4th, 2023. As we've discussed in recent meetings, under Section 7 of Michigan Public Act 256 of 2011, local units of governments are limited in their ability to regulate the sale of fireworks within their communities. However, we may undertake certain ordinances and apply certain regulations under locally adopted zoning ordinance for fireworks vendors. So with that context, we refer temporary land use applications for fireworks vendors through our temporary land use procedures of section 7.120 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance. And under that section, I'll review some of the criteria as they apply to this proposed use at the Menards site. The site currently has 421 off-street parking spaces. This has been demonstrated to be sufficient at the store's location. The tent, a portable storage container, and the surrounding space will remove approximately 14 regular parking spaces, but the site will still have adequate parking while the temporary land use is ongoing. As far as adequate drainage, the site is an existing parking lot with stormwater drainage facilities, and the proposed tent and storage container will not negatively impact these facilities. As far as compatibility with surrounding land uses, the proposed use is retail sales in a parking lot of a large shopping center or large store, and the site is Zone C2 Extensive Highway Business District, and so the use is compatible with surrounding land uses. As far as size, height, and type of construction of the proposed buildings and structures in relation to the surrounding site, this has been the focus of some recent temporary land use applications. And with that in mind, I would just remind the Planning Commission this is a use that's only for a few days, limited time frame around the 4th of July. And so the material and the aesthetics of the tent are not under close focus, but just note that the tents are taking place in a tent structure. Tent sales often take place in parking lots, so no impacts are expected to have a negative effect on the surrounding site in terms of structure. Typically at the setup of any fireworks sales for a site during the year, the building official and the fire marshal will go review the structure for compliance with applicable codes. The fifth criterion is whether sufficient setbacks from road rights-of-way lines and right-of-way lines and lot lines are met. In this case, there is a setback of greater than 25 feet, which is the minimum required for side lot lines, greater than 35 feet from the Belleville Road right-of-way for the front yard, and greater than 30 feet from the adjoining property to the west as required under section 3.112 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance. This year's application does have some dimensions on it. I would just seek a little bit of additional clarity on from the applicant. There's a drawing that shows a 27-foot setback on one side to the east end and a 32-foot setback to the west end of the tent area. I would just request the applicant clarify what those lines are in the application package, and those are shown in the materials provided by the applicant on page 25 of tonight's packet, so we can put that on the screen if we need to. But in the meantime, before the applicant speaks, I'll go through the rest of the findings. The site will provide its own electrical generation under a generator. The site will have adequate trash disposal and site cleanup. And there's an agreement with Menards as far as sanitary facilities, and due to the short nature of customer shopping, there are no sanitary facilities provided at the tent itself. The hours of operation are from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. While our ordinance from 1986 requires fireworks sales to conclude at 9 p.m., the Act 256 that I referenced earlier preempts this, and the sales are allowed to go until 10 p.m. As in previous years, there were no issues with these hours of operation, and we don't anticipate issues with those hours this year. As far as outdoor light and signs, there are no exterior lights provided. There are interior lights that would be hung by the tent company. The applicant is also permitted to have one 32 square foot temporary sign for a period not to exceed 30 days. As far as other licenses and permits required, a current consumer fireworks retail facility non-permanent license must be provided by the applicant, and the township fire marshal shall be separately reviewing this application. The fire marshal has received these materials, and we anticipate a response prior to the event setup. We'll be sure that any requirements of the fire marshal are met as part of the setup of this tent. As far as potential noise, odor, dust, and glare, the proposed temporary use should not increase the noise, odor, dust, or glare. As far as fire lanes, fire protection, and security, the Van Buren Township Fire Marshal shall review the application for adequacy of fire lanes and fire protection. The applicant has noted on their site plan sheet that there will be 2 to 4 employees during open hours, and then all products will be returned to their fireproof storage after hours. The site will have 3 fire extinguishers and 3 exits as shown on the plan on the screen here. The proposed use is not anticipated to have significant off-site impacts on traffic volumes, and the township does not anticipate requiring any bonds for the prompt removal of the site, but the owner will be responsible for ensuring the prompt removal of the tent to its pre-sale condition. There are no other concerns. However, again, the applicant is subject to the regulations of Act 256 and applicable regulations of the fire department. And my only recommendation, apart from the standard fire marshal's review and building official's review, is that the applicant should clarify what those setback lines are in the site plan that was submitted. Otherwise, I'm here to answer any questions from the Planning Commission.
Okay, do we have a presentation by the applicant? Please introduce yourself and
Good evening. My name is Richard Tapper. I'm the state regional for Phantom Fireworks. This is our 5th year at the Menard site. Again, if we didn't do a good job, Menards wouldn't sign a lease with us. They wouldn't allow us back. So we haven't had any problems the previous 4 years. At 27 feet we have on there, that just shows you the distance between the tent and the storage unit. The state law says you got to have at least 20 feet between the two. So again, we just show that this is the plans that we give to the state of Michigan. So they see that the storage unit's at least 20 feet away from the tent. So that's why we have that marking there. And again, the storage unit's out of the driveway, so it's back farther. Normally, it's about 25 feet away, but again, we don't want it blocking where cars can drive up and down.
do we have any questions for the Planning Commission?
Through the chair, I have a question for the applicant. Just for clarification, in the township letter, it says that during non-operating hours, all products will be returned to their fireproof storage unit. So I'm just for clarification, the example that you gave, I don't see anything on here that describes it as a fireproof storage unit.
That's just, I mean, that's the storage unit we've been using. We use Mobile Mini. If something happens, there's a fire, you got the 4, metal walls that are going to prevent it. I mean, after, 3-4 hours, possibly something can happen. But again, this is my 13 seasons in Michigan. We've not had one problem with our tent or our storage unit or even being robbed.
Is it required to be fireproof a fireproof storage?
No,
unit?
no. A lot of companies don't use, a lot of companies use storage units and they use the pods, the smaller ones. Again, these are the bigger ones, the heavy duty ones. So again, this is what we choose to use. They're heavy duty, you can't break into them. You got the special puck lock that you have on them. The only way they can break in is if they cut into the side of the wall.
Okay, can you explain what I don't know what they are and I haven't read it, but NFPA 11, 23, 24, and 25 is?
That's just National Fire Protection Act that was, derived, I forgot what year, for the fireworks, the National Act, and that's what Michigan code follows. So we follow the standards of how you have to operate a fireworks tent or a stand.
So basically, based on, the language is incorrect for the storage, is that?
As fireproof, a fireproof storage container.
Fireproof and storage are totally two different things. A fireproof storage container is different than a storage container.
Yeah, I'll make that correction. And moving forward, I don't have a good answer on where that specific.
Use
term came
storage
from.
units, they actually just sleep in their tent for 12 or 14 or 15 days, and they leave all the product inside the tent. That, to us, is not as safe, so that's why we have storage units. This way, all the product isn't out on the sales area. You take out what you need at a time.
Just out of curiosity, is there a limit to the amount of fireworks you can have under a tent at one time?
No, there's really no limit. You can't leave the fireworks unattended. So again, if someone happens to be having fireworks stored all night in their tent and they have a trailer to the side and they're sleeping in the trailer and they lock the walls around the side, if there's no one inside that tent awake, if a fire marshal comes by, they can get a $10,000 ticket.
Yep.
Commissioner Jar?
From previous fireworks applications that have come through, I think that distinction on the fireproofness of the container relates to the container itself. You can't hold a match to the container and light it up like a plastic one. I don't think it's meant to be a fireproof to keep
Well, that's
fire
what I mean.
from
There's a difference between fireproofed and a storage container. Because a storage container, you can hold a match up, it's not going to light anything on fire. But fireproofed is different. It has to maintain a certain level of rating, in case there's a fire.
Okay. Ms. Krishnan looks like she wanted to interject something.
If I may just add to that, I don't think the intent is to require fireproof walls like in building construction.
do
It is
I.
basically a
Right.
storage container to keep the fireworks inside. I think it's just the use of the word fireproof
That's what
sort
I
of
think
throws
it
it off.
needs
It's
to
just
be
a storage
removed, right.
container.
Right.
Chair, I had a follow-up question
Yes.
for staff, possibly for the applicant. There's no food trucks or outdoor fires or any other incompatible uses, barbecue stalls set to run at this time near this fireworks stand this year? Okay. Just wanted to check. You agree?
Never had that before.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Menards has had a mobile food vendor, but in a different part of the site. But
Oh.
this year, there is not one that I'm aware of.
Vendors, our operators are only allowed to sell fireworks that we provide them. They can't sell water, they can't sell fireworks they buy from someone else in their tent. They just gotta sell what Phantom provides them.
Any other questions from the commission? Is there any public comment? Anyone in the audience to speak? Anyone on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Do we have a motion then on the commission?
Mr. Chair, I move to grant the
Chair Jarrett.
applicant Phantom Fireworks temporary land use approval to permit a temporary outdoor fireworks tent sale from June 22nd to July 4th of 2023 at the site located at 10010 Belleville Road, the site being located in the Menards parking lot. Based on the analysis and subject to the conditions detailed in the letter of staff dated April 20th, 2023, humbly submitted for your support.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, supported by Commissioner Grant. Is there any discussion on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Sherry Budd?
Yes.
Bernie Grant?
Yes.
Medina Atchison?
Yes.
Jackson Paul? Jeff Jar?
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you have your temporary land use. Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too. Okay, that brings us to item 2 on our agenda this evening. Excuse me. Case 22060, W&W Real Property Incorporated, 44168 Van Born Road. Applicant S.E. Graham Associates, on behalf of prospective owner William Newman and W&W Real Property Incorporated, has applied seeking approval of a proposed multi-phase development with a building inclusive of roughly 15,766 square feet, engineering R&D office area, and roughly 40,157 square feet, manufacturing area, in the first phase of construction, along with associated parking and underground utility, stormwater infrastructure, and future expansion, including roughly 78,845 square feet, manufacturing building. The location is parcel number V125830009900500. Address 44168 Van Born Road. The proposed development is located on the north side of Van Born Road, just east of Sheldon Road. The site is zoned M2, General Industrial District. We'll first hear a presentation from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. As stated, the owner of the property or prospective owner of the property is W&W Real Property Incorporated. But as you can see on the application materials, the project title is TYC Americas Michigan Mobility Center. So you'll hear more from the applicant about what TYC Americas does. But as you can see, this is a mix of research and development and manufacturing with small automotive components, including headlights and plastics parts. This is a site that is zoned appropriately for this use, roughly just a little over 14-acre site. And there are some key areas that I will comment on throughout our staff review tonight, but I think our planning consultant, senior principal planner from McKenna, Vidya Krishnan, and Mike Lepek from Fishbeck as our township engineer are well suited to go through their comments. And then, of course, we'll hear from the applicant for a brief presentation from them as well. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Ms. Krishnan, and I have some slides that kind of follow some of the underlying conditions in Vidya's report.
Sounds good. Thank you, Director Power. Good evening, members of the Commission. As Director Power summarized, the proposal before you tonight is from TYC Americas for the construction of an automobile parts manufacturing and accessory engineering research and design offices. The site is zoned M2, and the proposed manufacturing, which is light and heavy, is permitted as a principal land use in the M2 General Industrial District. As was mentioned, the project is going to be built in 3 phases. The first phase is to be completed upon approval and final engineering at this time, and that will include some manufacturing, engineering, and design offices. Phases 2 and 3 will be entirely manufacturing additions, increasing their manufacturing capacity at the plant itself. The Planning Commission does have the authority to approve a phased plan approach, but every single phase needs to be standalone on its own. The reason for this is, should for some reason the additional phases not materialize, the site still needs to look like it is finished. So each stage needs to look complete. So at this time, in line with what the township has previously required, along with phase 1, all of the landscaping, the site improvements, and other associated improvements need to be put into place at this time itself. So the Planning Commission can require a bond for completion of a particular phase or a particular set of improvements to ensure that if some portion of it is not completed and the site looks incomplete, you can use the bond money to make the site look like it's still finished. The site is compliant with all of the dimensional requirements in terms of setbacks, lot coverage, and building height. With regard to access and circulation, There are 3 proposed curb cuts onto the site. 2 are off Van Born Road, as you can see on the site plan on the screen, and 1 is off Sheldon Road, and the access drives maintain a significant distance from the intersection of Van Born and Sheldon Roads itself. Lanes of ingress and egress are to be striped at all proposed driveways, and both driveways on Van Born are tapered. As you can see in the site plan, there is a deceleration lane that is shown over there. Any improvements to Van Born Road are subject to review and approval by Wayne County since the road is under their jurisdiction. The revised plans show that the ingress and egress is also clearly marked off Sheldon Road, and the curb cuts comply with the standards that we have regulating distance from an intersection. With regard to traffic, the applicant previously submitted a traffic impact study. It's not a detailed traffic study, but it's an impact study that basically tells you the number of trips that can possibly be generated from the site and what are the level of services at all of the nearby intersections to show whether this is going to have any impact or not. The study was done by Stonefield Engineering and Design, which is also the site's engineer. A minor correction on the traffic impact study, it refers to the project as a mixed-use development. It is an industrial development, not a mixed use. And the TIS concludes that the project would not have a significant impact on traffic on the adjacent roadway. However, since this is a significant sized industrial facility in line with what Wayne County has required for other industrial projects within the township, the TIS needs to be submitted to Wayne County to make sure that they are okay with it too. Now, the study shows that at full build, and in the study, full build is written as 2025, the project will generate 134 additional peak hour weekday morning trips and 109 additional peak hour weekday evening trips. So since only phase 1 is going to be finished by 2025, not full build, the TIS needs to be corrected to show whether the 134 trips are at full build completion in 2027 or is it at 2025 itself. So that correction needs to be made. The study indicates a 3% increase in left turn traffic at the intersection of Van Born and Sheldon, which currently already operates under capacity. So it is actually not functioning at its optimal level. There are levels of services at every traffic intersection, A through F, A being the best, and F being actually level of service, which is fail, which means the wait time to actually make turn movements is too long. So the applicant is proposing no changes. So we do want Wayne County to chime in and let us know if they are okay with maintaining the existing level of service at the intersection, considering the limited number of trips that this facility is saying that it's going to generate, but we do need that clarified. The applicant has submitted detailed circulation diagrams, which shows how an emergency vehicle, semi-trucks, and other waste haulers will navigate through the site, and all of those meet our turn movement requirements. The plan shows new 5-foot wide concrete sidewalks along Sheldon and Van Born Road frontages, and on the interior of the site, there are 7-foot wide sidewalks, which would provide access from their office and research wing to the manufacturing wing, and so on. There is connectivity within the site. With regard to parking and loading, all of the spaces do meet ordinance standards and are double striped as required. The total parking requirement based upon a manufacturing facility is 256 parking spaces. The site has a total of 262 parking spaces, 8 of which are handicap accessible. The ordinance does have 2 standards, one which is based on gross floor area and another which is based upon the number of employees. We do believe the applicant has used the more restrictive standards. However, in order to verify that, we do need to have a total notation of the number of employees on the site plan also. It's a manufacturing facility. It does have loading docks on the north side, so no additional loading space striping is required. The Planning Commission is currently in the process of discussing an EV ordinance. In the meantime, the applicant is proposing EV charging stations in their parking lot, and the EV spaces appear to be designed in line with what our new ordinance is going to state. So they are pretty much in compliance at this time. The landscaping and screening requirements for the M2 district and in our ordinance are pretty extensive. We have landscaping required along the rights of way of both streets, parking lot landscaping, greenbelt buffering adjacent to the north is M1 across the railroad. And whatever is your abutting zoning, it's M2 to the east. So depending upon which zoning district you abut, we have specific greenbelt standards. We also have open space landscaping requirements, equipment screening, and stormwater basin landscaping. At this point of time, the applicant meets all of the requirements for landscaping. The required calculations are on the plan, and the required tree species are also being proposed. Once again, the stormwater detention basin is subject to review by Wayne County, so they typically have their standards of what kind of plantings you can put around the basin. Typically, they have not had an issue with what our ordinance proposes, but they do like to sign off on it. So as part of the stormwater detention, they will be reviewing it. I do want to make note that all of the landscaping that is shown must be installed as part of Phase 1, with the exception of the parking areas along Van Born Street frontage, which are going to be constructed in Phase 2 or Phase 3. So we would not expect them to put in parking lot landscaping when there's no parking lot in that section. But all of the perimeter landscaping, the detention pond landscaping, and foundation landscaping for each phase needs to be in at the completion of Phase 1. Based upon tree removal on the site, they are providing replacement for 6 trees because they're removing only a few regulated trees on the site, and the required replacement trees are shown on the plan. Lighting, there are a significant number of light fixtures. These are a mix of wall packs, scones, pole-mounted lights, landscape floodlights. They have provided manufacturer's cut sheet detail for all of these fixtures. The pole-mounted lights are to be 30 feet tall. Our ordinance has a limit of 25 feet. However, the Planning Commission does have the discretion to allow it to be as high as 30 feet, which you have done on other industrial sites. It does not immediately abut any single-family residential areas, so we are in support of the 30-foot high proposed poles. In a couple of areas in the parking lot, the illumination intensity exceeds what we allow in our ordinance. Our ordinance does not allow either administration or the Planning Commission to deviate from the illumination standards. So our recommendation is the applicant adjust the illumination intensity to bring the foot candles down to what is allowable by the ordinance. Otherwise, they will have to seek a variance for lighting, which is typically not something we have sent people to the Zoning Board of Appeals for. So I would just request that they adjust the bulbs or whatever lumens they're proposing so that it is within the ordinance standards. With regard to architecture and building details, Director Power has put it up on your screen. The building is mostly masonry units. The lower half is built of beige CMU, and then you have a gray-brown prefab metal siding on the upper half, and then there is a blue band going around it. That is basically TYC Americas. It is their corporate colors, so they have designed the building. The front part that you see with the blue color raised roof on the left side of your screen, that is basically their office and their design wing. So that has storefront windows, columns, and all of the details that make it look like an office entrance, while the rear larger portion of the building is manufacturing. There is a colored rendering. However, the Planning Commission recently has been asking to actually see the building materials once again. COVID kind of pushed us back into looking at all the colors on Zoom on a screen, so the Planning Commission wanted to see these samples again in person. One of the questions we did have was, when Phase 1 is completed, what is the east wall of Phase 1 going to look like? Because when you add Phase 2, the east wall of Phase 1 will now become an interior wall and likely be taken down in case there are assembly lines or something needs to connect inside. Just in case Phase 2 or similarly Phase 3 does not materialize, we need to make sure that the east wall of each phase is complete and architecturally appealing as a complete building itself. So we do need elevations of the east facade at the completion of each phase. The required dumpster has been provided and is designed to match the building colors and materials. We want to make note that the enclosure needs to be at least 1 foot higher than the actual dumpster unit itself in order to make sure that the unit is not seen on the top. With regard to signs, there are lots of incidental signs in the parking lot, basically saying EV parking or handicap parking. Those signs do not require a permit or approval. The TYC Generas or TYC Americas sign that is on the building will be submitted later for administrative approval for signage. One of the last things that we noted was there is a security fence on the rear of the property, as you can see on the site plan. Director Power has highlighted it in red. The fence is to be constructed of painted aluminum, and there are spikes on top of it. The Planning Commission does have the discretion to allow for a spiked fence design for security reasons, and you have done that similarly on other M1 and M2 parcels. However, it is something that you specifically need to approve as part of your action. The applicant is also proposing a small outdoor area for seating for their employees with decorative benches and picnic tables in a patio area. At this time, the applicant has been working with the township for quite some time. Initially, they picked another site which happened to be M1 till they found the site which was perfectly zoned for their use, which is M2 for all of the uses that they are proposing. Most of the uses are addressed. There are a few minor issues, none of which will actually hold up the site plan process at this time. So it's our recommendation that the Planning Commission grant preliminary site plan approval for TYC Americas to locate its new automotive parts, office, design, engineering, research, and manufacturing facility at 44168 Van Born Road, subject to the 12 conditions that are listed in the McKenna review letter dated April 19th of 2023. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Fishbeck.
All right, thank you. At the request of Van Buren, Fishbeck has reviewed the preliminary site plan for the proposed TYC Americas Michigan Mobility Center located at 44168 Van Born Road in Van Buren Township. This project entails construction of an office and manufacturing building over 3 phases. The proposed site includes asphalt paved parking area and driveways, concrete curb and gutter, asphalt driveways connecting to both Sheldon Road and Van Born Road, concrete sidewalk, full stormwater collection and retention system, water and sanitary service connections to the proposed building, and other various landscape and site plan improvements. At this time, Fishbeck examines and reviews the feasibility of the engineering aspects of the site design, but will not conduct a full engineering review until the engineering review submittal. For our general comments, an original review of the plans, there's a large DTE easement on the south side of the property. Just before this letter, the applicant did provide communication with DTE that confirms the applicant is allowed to cross under this, the existing 30-inch pipeline within the Wayne County right-of-way. There's a 30-inch gas pipeline in the right-of-way of Van Born Road. They also confirmed that the easement purchased on the property for the future installation of another gas main is likely not moving forward, and the applicant may encroach and build within the easement. So essentially, we had some concerns with the DTE easement, and at this point, the applicants had conversations with us and DTE and are good to go as of now. For the water main service, existing GIS systems indicate that there's a 12-inch asbestos cement water main running east-west along the south side of Van Born Road. This water main is supplied by a 12-inch water main that runs north-south on the west side of Belleville Road. The applicant's plan indicates 2 connections to the existing water main in Van Born Road. Their water main then loops the property with a 12-inch C900 PVC water main with four hydrants and 6 12-inch gate valves and wells. The building will then be serviced by a 4-inch connection for the water service and a 6-inch connection for fire suppression. We're requesting additional water main size and material labels to be added to the plans. Currently, it appears that water main was only labeled once, and we would just like the material further clarified. And during the engineering review, the township will make the final determination of what water main material they want on site. For water main layout, we would like the applicant to verify utility spacing between the water main and the other utilities. It has to be 10 feet per the state. And on the west side of the site, we were looking to see if we could get the water main moved over to the parking lanes so that if there's any access needed on the township's part, vehicle travel lanes aren't disturbed or blocked, and any work can be in the parking spots. We had a note that was on our staff review as well. We were looking to see if the applicant has verified water main size based on the required flow and usage for current and future phases. We believe the size of the loop may potentially be reduced to an 8-inch loop based on the facility water requirements. The applicant may reach out to the township engineer to discuss available flows for the proposed loop. Hydrants are to be located 5 feet behind the back of curb, and also the easements need to extend 6 feet past each hydrant. We're also commenting on the water main, we might require the water main extension on the northeast corner, bring the water main to the property line for any future expansion of the property to the east. Sanitary sewer, so township GIS records indicate there's a 21-inch reinforced concrete gravity sanitary sewer running east-west along the south side of Van Born Road. This gravity sewer flows west to Belleville Road, where it connects to another 21-inch sanitary sewer. The applicant's plan indicates a 12-inch sanitary line connecting to the existing 21-inch main running along the south side of Van Born Road. The proposed 12-inch sanitary sewer will run north and ends at a manhole just south of the building. A 6-inch sanitary lead will connect the building to the proposed sanitary sewer with a Y connection. Our comment on the sanitary sewer, as part of the township engineering standards, the basis of design flow computations for sanitary sewers must be submitted as part of this preliminary site plan review. So we'll require the applicant have those on the plans for engineering review. And also, when we get to engineering, we'll need profiles of all the sanitary sewer. Moving on to stormwater management, the site is currently undeveloped and no stormwater utilities exist on the property. The applicant's plan indicates that there are existing wetlands on the east side of the site, and then there's a storm sewer system along the west side of Sheldon Road. The Yost drain is running north-south through the property to the east of the proposed development, and the McKinstry drain runs through the properties to the west and the south of the proposed site. The applicant's plan include a fully enclosed stormwater collection system that outlets to a retention pond on the northernmost part of the site. Site stormwater is collected through a series of catch basins and conveyed through enclosed storm sewers with 2 manholes that discharge into the southern bank of the retention pond. The purpose of the retention basin is to retain and infiltrate all site runoff. As previously stated, the applicant's plan appears to propose a retention pond for stormwater management in accordance with the Township Engineering Standards Manual. Retention ponds, which are not to be used for aesthetic, agricultural, or consumptive reasons, but serve the sole purpose of collecting storm runoff, will be permitted only if no drains or natural drainage course for discharging of a detention pond are reasonably available to the developer. Such use of retention ponds shall be considered a temporary measure or last resort to be discontinued as soon as a drain becomes available to the development. To add on to that, we were provided a geotech report by the applicant dated December 12th, 2022. The provided geotech report indicated that the apparent native site soils do not appear to be suitable for infiltration. Due to the lack of infiltration, a retention pond will not be allowed. The applicant must provide a viable design for stormwater management prior to final engineering review. We have a comment in here, stormwater detention with a lift pump station has been used many times by other developments in the township and is a acceptable solution. But we'll look to see if the ultimate outlet from the site has been reviewed and confirmed by Wayne County prior to finalizing design and going to engineering review. And moving on, to end stormwater management, the applicant, again, must receive Wayne County approval prior to final engineering review. And we'll look to see the Wayne County correspondence and any review letters as well. Paving and grading, as the part of the engineering review process after this, we'll continue to look at the ADA grading in the ramp areas on the site. And also for the phasing, we were provided a phasing narrative and plan submitted to the township on April 18th, the applicant indicated that the parking lot will be built out in 3 phases to accommodate the building expansion. We were requesting that the applicant look at the phasing between Phase 1 and 2. The parking lot layout for Phase 1 does not offer much room for expansion constructability. How will Phase 2 be built while maintaining access to and from the western driveway? And more specifically, how will access be maintained for fire truck movements or access to the hydrant that's in front of the building? And the sanitary manhole that's also right there in front of the building. Traffic, this was touched on earlier. The applicant did provide a traffic impact study. It was completed by Stonefield and dated March 31st. Access to the site will be provided by 2 proposed driveways along Van Born Road and 1 driveway along Sheldon. The proposed development will generate 134 trips in the AM peak hour and 109 trips in the PM peak hour. Our traffic group has reviewed the impact study and had several minor comments that we requested the applicant address prior to us approving the study. Our biggest concern that came from the impact study is at the intersection of Van Born Road and Belleville Road. It's our understanding that the existing intersection, specifically the left turn lane from westbound Van Born Road, has a level of service of F, existing conditions. So it's currently, stated before, failing, the left turn lane. The right turn lane has a level of service of B, and the Belleville 4 through lanes have a level of service of A. But the left turn lane is on Van Born is causing a lot of stacking and delays. So the additional traffic produced by the TYC facility will only add to the delays already occurring at this intersection. But when the updated information is provided, we'll do further analysis and also get with the county as well on that. So at this time, for the traffic study, we will continue to review that, but at this time, the revisions that we require should not significantly impact the site plan development and should not prevent the Planning Commission from granting preliminary site plan approval. So at this time, our recommendation, Fishbeck recommends the Planning Commission grant the TYC America's Michigan Mobility Center preliminary site plan approval for engineering feasibility, subject to the comments listed above and in accordance with the township's engineering standards manual. The township will request to see Wayne County review comments regarding the stormwater design in the proposed retention pond. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Director Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lepreck, for discussing the traffic. I just want to take a moment to pause and touch base on that before I go into the fire marshal's comments. You heard from the planning consultant and the township engineer regarding the traffic impact of this project. Just to provide an overall procedural statement on that, as you heard, this project will not significantly increase the existing issue, but there's an existing issue that appears to be there at Van Born and Belleville Road, and we assume that will be reiterated when the traffic study is complete. It is not anticipated that this project's layout within the boundaries of the site will change based on the recommendations of a traffic study, and so at this time, it's reasonable to allow the plan to proceed through the preliminary review step, but we know that there will have to be a final traffic study, and we'll have to make sure that the scope of the final traffic study and the content of the final traffic study will be reviewed and approved by the township and Wayne County prior to a final site plan being approved for the site. And in terms of the recommendations of that study, we're not sure yet. As Mike said, we'll have to coordinate closely with the county and with the applicant to understand what the county will be looking for. The county ultimately will have the authority to approve or deny any recommended improvements based on the outcome of this study. So just to kind of give a nod to the elephant in the room, we all know that there's an issue at that intersection that's been referred to, and we are going to continue to coordinate closely with the applicant to determine what course has to be followed to address that. That being said, and I guess to add to that, there's a possibility that based on the recommendations of that traffic study, there would be improvements that may be required. I've spoken with Mr. Newman, who is here with TYC tonight, about the possibility of a development agreement or some agreement being part of a final site plan approval for this project. We don't quite know if that would be necessary at this point or what the recommended improvements will be, but we just want to make sure the Planning Commission knows that we're going to be looking more closely at this during engineering. That being said, the fire marshal also had a report that I'll just briefly summarize. You can see on page 49 of your packet. The fire marshal noted that the needed fire flow for the building will determine the number of fire hydrants required and the spacing of hydrants. I asked Fire Marshal and Deputy Chief Linehan about that comment, and he said that he had no issue with this plan proceeding through preliminary site plan review stage based on that comment. And also, I understand there was an update from the project's architect to the Fire Marshal to address that comment at this point. So that comment is being addressed. Comments regarding access to the site, the turning movements of the largest ladder truck, access to the Knox padlock for the gates on the site, those have all been addressed. The storage of hazardous materials and an inventory statement were addressed at the planning staff review in March. There will be no outside storage of hazardous materials at this site. As in terms of fire access lanes, this was addressed in the March 29th submittal, and will have to be, the no parking fire lane signage will have to be verified in the field at construction time. Otherwise, the fire marshal had no issue with this plan going through the preliminary site plan review stage at this time. That being said, I know Dan Newman and Dylan Schickel of TYC are here, and William Newman also with TYC is present via Zoom. What I will have to do is if the applicant would like to go through their slides, I'm going to put them up on the same computer as our Zoom screen. So anybody on Zoom, there may be some slight interruption during the toggling of the presentation, but hopefully that'll be. So I'll put this up and we can hear from the applicant, if that's okay with the chair.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Director Power. Commissioners, good evening. My name is Dylan Schickel. I lead the OEM business for TYC Americas, and I'll tell you a little bit about who we are as TYC, and then we'll turn it over to our team for the deeper review. So this is just obviously the rendering that you've seen of our site. We can go on to the next page. So a little introduction of who is TYC Americas. You've heard a few different corporate names. Our company, TYC Group, it's a Taiwan-based company. We're a designer and manufacturer of automotive component parts. We have over 2,800 employees globally. And our parent company here in the United States is called Genera Corporation. The sister company to that is W&W Real Property, which owns property for us. We have a registered alias doing business as TYC Americas, and we're the USA arm of the TYC group based out of Taiwan. Our products are a wide range of automotive components that are used on a large cross-section of vehicles, from automotive vehicles, heavy-use vehicles, as well as some off-road vehicles. Our products are used as both a replacement and original equipment parts on vehicles worldwide. We, as TYC Americas, are proposing to add our Michigan Mobility Center to our business, and it'll be TYC's first site including engineering, design, and manufacturing outside of Asia. So we're very happy to have the opportunity to bring that here to Michigan, to Van Buren Township. We are really eager to expand our footprint and become part of the Van Buren community. This is a long-term investment for us. We want to become part of the community, a good citizen, an employer of choice, et cetera. And this is a long-term investment for us. We've proposed a 3-phase plan, and the life of the manufacturing site will go well beyond the introduction times of the 3-phase plan. Our Michigan Mobility Center will focus on the design, engineering, and manufacturing of vehicle lighting products. So you can see in the bottom left of the slide a few pictures of some of our products, headlights that go on things like motorcycles and off-road vehicles, other small signal lamps that might go on cars or heavy trucks. Some of those are some of the products that we'll actually bring from Asia to manufacture here in Van Buren Township if we're able to execute our plans as expected. The products that we'll make at this site will be for sale to OEM vehicle manufacturers. We'll be supplying as both a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 supplier to the OEMs. And the last point is our development. We're intended to be a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility. We're going to have a lot of advanced manufacturing technology inside, and we'll be providing high-tech jobs to a growing area in automotive business. Lighting is a substantially growing commodity. Maybe you guys are seeing that chrome is going away from cars and lights are being added. And so you see things like lit emblems, lit stripes on cars. Those are the kind of products that we'll be making in this site. So with that, I'll turn it over to our professional team, who's going to talk a little more about the details of the development.
Good evening, Michael Gold with Stonefield Engineering and Design, civil engineer on the project. I'll just run through the site briefly. All you guys gave a very extensive review, so yeah, if you, can I control it here? There's a rendering on.
I think you can. So just, I think it's only Mr. Newman is on the Zoom. You can view any of what we're looking at on the YouTube channel. Anybody who's watching tonight.
No, I just need to go to the next.
Zoom screen is black right now, so you can use that for presentation.
So this is the overall site, colorized rendering. So tonight we are seeking site plan approval for the overall 3-phase development. It's about 138,000 square feet of manufacturing, research and design, and accessory offices, shipping and receiving. Each phase as it comes through would be self-parked for the building proposed. We're also, as Vidya stated, providing the extensive landscaping required, all part of phase 1, except for the internal parking lot areas on the east side along Van Born. With that, we are proposing access to the site, 2 full movement curb cuts onto Van Born and 1 onto Sheldon on the northwest corner. And we were in receipt of all the comments. We will provide before final site plan approval, and we will work with township staff to provide a compliant lighting plan, as well as stormwater management between Wayne County and township staff. That also goes for all site utilities. We'll be sure to coordinate with the township engineer and make sure all of that is compliant. Traffic, the TIS will be updated per comments received, as well as it has been and will be. The impact statement or study has not been submitted to county yet. We're waiting on preliminary comments from them for the overall site and the trip memo that was submitted to them. That will be submitted, and we'll address all comments from township staff as well as the county. The site overall development will be creating that 134 trips in the morning peak hour and 109 in the evening peak hour. The phase one development itself will be providing less than 100 new trips. So we do understand that the intersection at Belleville and Van Born is already existing, operating at a level of service F for the left turn. We will update our statement or study accordingly, and then work with township staff as well as the county to provide all approvals necessary. With that, I will give it up to the architect, kind of talk about the building and go through some of those comments, but happy to answer any questions later on.
Good evening. My name is Jason Krieger with Krieger Clad Architects. The address for the record is 2120 East 11 Mile, Royal Oak. This is Dylan Stefanko. He's the actual project architect. I'm just here talking right now, so he's going to cover me if I miss something. How do we? There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is walk you through some of the building elements, and then obviously we're here for questions. So the shaded area represents phase one. We have the office, the R&D, and then the manufacturing in the back. And then you can see how this development would then extend on in the future for future phases. The one question came up about the materials, and I think that's a very good question. What we will do, and we can show it on the plans, is wrap the materials so that when the next phase goes on, then you would punch openings to go from phase to phase.
We have a rendering showing that in the presentation, showing that eastern wall.
So as you've already seen, these are some exterior elevations. We have some colored renderings in here, right? So we'll probably spend a little bit more time on that. We do have a material board there that you can see. So the blue chip that you see represents the blue for the mansard roof, and then we would just color match the blue stripe. So the blue obviously is part of their logos, part of their branding. One thing I want to point out is that the mansard roof came about because we have rooftop units on that roof, and we have to screen it. So we thought we could do it in a creative way with a nice mansard roof. Gives it a little bit of design. Another thing I want to point out, which you do not often see in industrial manufacturing buildings, is there are a ton of windows in this building. So it'll be a very well-lit facility. It's going to be very high-tech, and it's going to be a wonderful space. In fact, it's so much so that the back manufacturing areas, it's an actual cavity wall because it's highly conditioned. So this is going to be a very, very wonderful facility. And then here's an aerial of the site, which you all have seen plenty of times tonight. So you see phase one. You can kind of see where the other phases go. And then here's some exterior renderings. So this is the front office. You notice with the height of the people there that we have very tall, very spacious ceilings. So there's going to be a lot of glass, very dramatic, very, very cool space. EV charging stations, again, just to highlight the technical side of this business. And then we have some other renderings. So there's the painted stripe. This is the CMU that you see. That's a burnished block, which is very, very nice. It looks almost like limestone when it goes up. It's very smooth, very polished, very clean. And then the windows are clear anodized aluminum. There's a colored chip there for that. And then the darker gray chip that we have on there is a pre-finished metal siding. This is on the side of the building. This is the employee entrance, a little break area. And we have a couple images of that, another aerial. This is just kind of going around the building. You can see the truck dock over there, the retention detention basin.
So this is the rendering of just phase one in the eastern wall. So
right there.
The intent is to completely finish it all the way out, and then when they're ready to start the next phases, they're just going to deconstruct as required, punch some holes in, and pick right up.
Keep going.
Where they left off. But we definitely want to finish that.
That's it. So we're all here for questions, and we're happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions from the commission?
Through the chair, I do have a question.
Commissioner Grant?
For the applicant. For the manufacturing side of your building here, what is your proposed mechanical systems for that?
So it's gonna be, we're looking at rooftop units. It's gonna be forced air. And due to the nature of their manufacturing process and testing, you know, we are.
Excuse me a second. Could you talk into the mic, please? Thank you.
So it is going to be rooftop units, forced air, and due to the manufacturing nature of TYC's product, they have pretty strict environmental controls. So we may look at individual systems that serve those specific manufacturing or testing areas, but it is going to be rooftop mounted forced air units.
Maybe this one's for Director Dan. Is there a requirement for screening for that as well?
And I'll probably look for some assistance with the planning consultant, but the view shed from the public right-of-way and the adjacent properties are going to be what are most important for mechanical equipment screening. And I think this meets the intent.
I'm talking about the Hyde Bay area, not the front office stuff.
Yeah, so we, you know, at the lower roof, like Jason mentioned, we looked at the mansard to try and hide some of those. And due to the large space that we have, you know, we would strategically locate these, and if there is an issue with sight lines, we could certainly look at an architectural screening product that would match the rest of the building.
Because the units on the upper area are going to be pretty large. They're not small, but all depends on location too.
Right. If the mechanical units are placed on the back of the manufacturing places, you're probably not likely to see them from the right-of-way areas based on line of sight. But if they so happen that, based upon how they lay out their interior floor plan, it is slightly to the front, they will be required to put in metal panel screens. And I'm
Yeah.
sure the front office area, initially I did have a comment why they're designing a mansard, which is a 70s design, till I realized that it's not really a mansard, it is actually functioning as a parapet screening. So something similar to screen the rooftop mechanical units would be required when they design the floor plan of those.
So is it going to need to be on the final plan for presentation or not, or?
We could,
As an approximation?
yeah, I mean, we could certainly propose something that we've used before that would match the development as. Yeah, we can do a sightline study, you know, and really it is gonna come down to kind of the final placement once we really dig into the mechanical design.
Right.
But the intent is to avoid screening if possible, but if we need it, we have that in our back pocket.
So I would suggest that you add a detail for mechanical equipment screening in general. So if it so happens that once you install it, Director Power determines that it is now visible, you can just put the screen in.
Absolutely.
Cover it up.
No problem.
Commissioner Jarrett.
I saw in the McKenna letter that there was a detail on the sidewalks going along Sheldon and Van Born. I don't see those on a lot of the renderings of the droughts. And honestly, in that one, I see that one, but I didn't see it on any of the plans. Was that just like recently submitted?
I thought it was,
It's possible I missed it.
No.
But like, I don't see a sidewalk on that rendering unless it's, again, I missed it.
Yeah,
this thing is the sidewalk over here? That's the
See.
sidewalk with the crosswalk. That's the sidewalk.
Okay, so it's landscaping
Yeah.
on the inside of the sidewalk towards the road?
it looks like it's a little hidden by the trees in the image.
Frontage landscaping is required on their property, not within the right-of-way. So it's right next to the sidewalk.
That's what I was wanting to see. Great. I have a question regarding the spiky detail on the fence. I don't know if there was a material sample for it, but I didn't see it. Is that to be provided before the?
They had a detail on one of the sheets. There is a fence detail which shows the spiked design. It is painted aluminum fence. It's up there.
Do we have the?
It's
So
aluminum.
which kind is it? Is it the kind with the bent tops, or is
Yes,
it the kind
it's
with
the-
the fleur-de-lis tops?
No, it's not the fleur-de-lis. It's the bent tops like we have seen on a couple of the
That's
ones.
like at the data center at the end of,
Yes.
not like the transaction processing center on.
No,
Okay.
not like the impaling ones. These are the curved ones.
Not the pretty impaling ones. Oh, I see.
Guess it depends how you try and jump it.
I think that's true. Okay, it was included in there, and so our preliminary, we would want to be able to say that those were acceptable, or would that be okay? And you believe that the bent ones are the acceptable, they're an acceptable model, you've verified the
Yes,
model?
this is consistent with what we have approved on other industrial sites for security reasons.
Okay, super. I had a question for Mr. Lepick. I didn't understand, you were talking about, there's a retention pond to the north, but it sounded like maybe that retention pond won't be allowed. I think I missed that. Is the idea gonna be to convert it into a detention pond? Is that?
Okay.
Correct, yeah, you can either do retention or detention. So retention collects stormwater and keeps it on site and infiltrates it. They submitted the geotech report, and on our review, there was a paragraph in there. They did an infiltration test to see if it was allowable, doable, and it said 0 infiltration. So therefore, you have to provide a detention, because the detention releases the water, the storm water from the site. So
It doesn't materially change the overall layout of the pond?
No.
Or is this a big engineering change?
yeah, no, that's a good question. So we did not think that they have a ton of space up there on the north side, so it's not gonna, we don't believe it will really affect the site plan that much.
We took a look into it as a detention pond. It will just shrink the
Yeah.
footprint, but it won't overall change the site layout at all. It'll stay up there and just shrink the footprint, and then still be landscaped accordingly with Wayne County and township standards.
Thank you. I have a few more questions, but if
Go
anyone
for
else
it.
would like to jump in. Okay, sorry, I wanted to yield if anyone had an engineering question or anything like that. But I was wondering if you guys could explain your EV charging station usage a little bit more. We're, as you've heard, we're currently working on an EV charging set of ordinances. And we're just interested in hearing, you know, what are you using them for? Are they for employee use? How do you plan to use them?
Yeah, I would defer to ownership on that one.
The intention of the EV charging stations is for employee use while at work. So there's no intention of outside use, at least at this point. We would be open if the township has recommendations or others to doing that. We're simply trying to look forward, place the fact that we're building a high-tech facility and the world's changing, so we want to put that in place. So
I wish we did have recommendations. We're working on it. But part of the educational process is hearing how you plan on deploying it so that we can be sure that we integrate that into our EV upcoming ordinances. I have a question for Ms. Krishnan. With regard to the lighting requirement, the photometrics look like they're out of spec. There's a light pole that's 30 feet when really, 25 is the more desirable one. There was some talk in your letter about seeking a variance. That doesn't seem like that would be something the applicant would want to be steering towards if they can avoid it. Could you expound on that a little bit more for me, please?
Yeah, so we proposed the 30-foot light poles as the illumination could spread farther, and that given it was an industrial, and speaking with Ms. Krishnan, it seems suitable for our site, and now we will just be taking a look at the illumination levels near the sidewalks and the parking areas and the building entrances to be in compliance. Right now, they're just a little too bright for security purposes, but we'll meet township standards before final site plan approval.
Okay, and your plan is to do that with a 30-foot tall pole? Or are you thinking you're going to revisit the lighting plan and come up with a 25-foot pole? What's the plan?
We would plan to use the 30-foot pole still. It just locations of the poles and then light, the strength of each fixture would just be modified, as well as building light placements.
Okay.
Commissioner Jar?
Yes.
We typically enforce the 25-foot when we think they're immediately adjacent to a single-family neighborhood, because we know higher poles means you see them at a distance. In this case, it's an industrial facility abutting other M2 and the railroad. So 30-foot light poles means fewer poles. They're not going to have to put in as many poles, and individual poles will cast the light further out. So we are in support of 30-foot light poles for settings such as these.
I understand the logic being that there'll be fewer overall poles, fewer light bulbs to replace.
And I think Mr. Gold said they're going to fix the illumination, so no variance, because they do know we won't support a variance for that.
Okay, super. And one more. I think the plans that I had, when we're reviewing said Belleville on them a lot? You know you're in Van Buren Township.
Yes, yes. It was more for an address. Figure out. We would put it in parentheses, but we understand.
Okay. I don't believe I have any. Yeah, I don't have any other questions. I think I'll make a comment, though. I like the materials sample board. You know, when we see the audience can't see it, I don't think, because it's not facing them right now. But when we're looking at the material samples, the color that we see on a printout versus a color that we see on the monitor versus the color that we see on the other monitor can sometimes be. I saw 4 different shades of blue, including the one that it's going to be. So I'm. Thank you very much. I know those are it's an ask to bring those, but I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm good.
Good?
Yes, sir.
Do we have any other questions?
Through the chair. I would just like to know more about what your plans are, or your future plans are for the EV parking spaces. Do you have like a rate that you're determining based on years of how many more spaces you plan on putting in for EV charging? Like a rate?
Again, I'll defer to ownership on that one.
Considering the adoption of EVs is very dynamic at this point, we've proposed the spaces that are there in the phase 1, and our intention is to understand what the usage is, the usage profile by employees, et cetera, and then potentially add more to the phase 2, phase 3, come back with slight modifications if needed. We actually, we're honestly learning about this as you guys are. We haven't done EV parking spaces at any of our facilities worldwide, so it'll be a little bit new for us as well. But by putting them in place and then being able to gather data on how they're used, we'll be able to make an educated move as we move through the phase process.
We might need to tap into you to like share some information as to what your studies are indicating. Another question for you. Do you have like some thoughts about how long the employee can park there? Like, can they park there overnight?
We wouldn't intend anyone to leave cars on site, only during working shift.
Okay, and your shifts are probably going to be eventually 24 hours, right?
Yeah,
With
our
management
intentions is that we'll have 5 days, 24-hour operations from relatively early in our opening and works.
And the EV chargers, are you going to be charging your employees, or are they going to be free?
Our intention at this point is to work with our benefits group and try to understand that, but we want to be an employer of choice. So to the extent that we can affordably offer that as a service to our employees, we would do so.
Go ahead, and then mine doesn't.
Yes, no, it's in
Okay.
response to what you asked. I recently, just a couple of days ago, I heard in another place, the employer said that what they would do is if employees are parked over there during the shift, after 4 hours or so, the machine switches itself off, and then they get an alert or a text that they have to move their vehicle so somebody else can charge their vehicle. I'm assuming it's a new technology, so they might do something like that.
We still need to understand from the equipment providers exactly what's possible, but we thought about some things like that. And the charging technologies are also changing pretty dramatically as far as the charge times and the compatibility of that with the vehicles. It's very dynamic.
Kind of like a
Go ahead,
smoke
Dylan.
break.
One of the other things that we're looking at for kind of future proofing the site is, you know, we've done this on other projects, is just running some conduit in the areas that we think we may need it. It's cheap to do up front, and if the you know EV charger use goes up, it's then already in the ground and much easier to install. So that's one of the things that we would probably look at here as well.
Good thinking. One final question, again, a forecasting question. You say you have other facilities. With you having to do the traffic study and it's already indicating an F, what are you thinking the direction Wayne County will go in as a resolution to the F?
Defer on this.
So that's hard to say. The county sometimes, in other areas, we've shown recommendations, for instance, for deceleration lanes, and the county has come back saying we don't want them there. So it just all depends on you know, what they see for their road at that time. We will be submitting we're going to update this study per the comments we did just receive, and we'll resubmit back to the township engineer and then also to the county to get their feelings on it. But it's hard to say what their feelings would be because it's already an existing condition. And the phase one that would be implemented within the next year to 2 years would truly have no adverse effect on it. It would still be operating. Only until 2029 would it be 130 trips at that peak hour.
The only other thought that I have that has come to me talking about this F is, I know that at times we could potentially ask that the trucks not come up and down Belleville Road. Have you had similar requests at other locations for this?
For the trucking, yeah, it would just depend on the routes that we anticipate the trucks would come down Van Born and then maybe even through Sheldon. That's why the intent of the eastern access drive as well as the northwest is strictly for truck route, and then you don't hit the security gate until up further. So we don't really anticipate the employees using them.
I wasn't thinking so much of employees using it as much as the trucks, you know, the 18-wheelers.
Right, and we anticipate that they'll be coming in and out of that northwest corner as well as that southeast corner.
And not taking Belleville Road.
I assume that they, through trial and error, they would learn real quick what they can and can't do.
Everything looks beautiful in my opinion. It's very nice. Love the colors. I'm looking forward to seeing you here as an employer of choice. So thank you for coming to Van Buren. That's it.
Commissioner Jarrett.
2 more questions, I apologize. First question is with regard again to the EV chargers. The vendor shown, I thought it said ChargePoint. Is that the plan? You're going with ChargePoint as the vendor?
Yes, that's
currently
who we have.
And are they also going to be a managed service provider for those?
That I do not know.
Okay.
Offhand, I couldn't tell you.
Fair enough.
But
So-
we've used them on other projects, and our electrical engineer is very familiar with them and recommends them highly.
Great. Last question that I think will probably be a deferral to ownership. Is there any problem with the suggestion of requiring the performance bond to ensure that you are complete after every phase?
We don't see any problem with that. Our intentions is to build the site to look attractive and complete. We've put a lot of effort into the details of the design of the building, and the last thing we're going to do is leave the site unfinished. We're as was mentioned, we put a lot of windows in. We've taken a lot of detail on the architecture, so we'll have the site complete. And if the township requires a bond, then we'll do that. But our intentions would be to convince you with our plans that won't be necessary, or be able to release the bond at the end of construction. So.
Director Power, you are able to come up with a proper bond for this project using our standards? Ms. Krishnan, you still recommend that we
Yes.
have a bond on this project?
Yes.
And it's just so it's clear to the applicant, we have every faith that you're going to be able to complete the project. It's all going to go great, but it's a protection that we like to require. I'm now on, I think.
Any other comments from the commission? Do we have any comments from the audience? Do we have any comments from Zoom?
We had one Zoom participant, and let me see if they're still there. Mr. Newman is there. If you'd like to add anything, you may. Otherwise, I think we're all set.
All set?
I don't see Mr. Newman saying anything, so should be good.
Okay, then do we have any action by the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Jarrett.
this time, I'd move to grant the applicant, S.E. Graham Associates Incorporated, on behalf of prospective owner, William Newman, WW Real Property Incorporated, the preliminary site plan approval to construct a multi-phase development with a building inclusive of roughly 15,766 square feet engineering R&D office area and roughly 40,157 square feet of manufacturing area in the first phase of construction, along with the associated parking and underground utility and stormwater infrastructure, and a future expansion including roughly 78,845 square feet of manufacturing building at the site located at parcel number V12583 009 0005 000, that address being 44168 Van Born Road, based on the analysis and subject to the conditions and comments detailed in the letter of staff dated April 20th, 2023, McKenna letter dated April 19th, 2023, Fishbeck letter dated April 20th, 2023, and the Van Buren Township Fire Report dated April 5th, 2023, with the additional condition that a performance bond will be required to ensure that the site appears complete after every phase, even if a future phase does not materialize. Ms. Krishnan, did you mention the 30-foot? We probably need to approve the 30-foot in the motion, yes, at this time?
Yes, you could add that 30-foot light pole height and the curved spike design for the fence is included as part of your preliminary approval.
Noting that the Planning Commission chooses to approve the 30-foot high light posts and the curved design of the security fence. I submit this motion for your approval.
Do we have any support?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Grant. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Atchison,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Bernie Grant,
Yes.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes. Thank you. You have your temporary site plan approval. We're anxious and looking forward to seeing the development carry forth. Thank you. And that moves us ahead. Do we have any general discussion and updates?
We will
Director
have a
Power?
meeting on May 10th, will be the next Planning Commission meeting. And additionally, our agricultural tourism or agritourism subcommittee has met once. They have another meeting scheduled next week. Our electric vehicle charging station subcommittee has met once also. And if you were astutely listening tonight, you could probably tell who was on that committee. Again, in a few weeks as well. So just looking forward to meeting again with this full group on May 10th.
Anyone else for the good of the order? Then, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Any support? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.